He is Mark Stewart, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel reporter covering the Wisconsin Badgers. We have not chatted in a couple weeks, Mark. A lot has happened. First of all, the Badgers lost to USC. More recently, defeated Purdue 52-6. Purdue is not a good football team, so everything we say has to be taken with a grain of salt. And the real question, the bigger question is, how much of what we saw from the Badgers on Saturday can truly be regarded as progress, like something that can be extrapolated over the rest of the season? Because Purdue was so bad, but on the other hand, the Badgers did everything well. All three phases performed well. So what bright spots did you take from that game that you could say, that is legitimate progress? This team really is headed in the right direction. And what's maybe a little more of a mirage?
Yeah, I guess the first thing, when you play a team like Purdue that's struggling, you want to beat them like Wisconsin beat them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a positive from that standpoint, that, hey, they took a team that was struggling out there. They didn't mess around. They pretty much kind of, jumped on them from the start and pretty much didn't let up until, pretty much they started letting the reserves in. And even some of the reserves were making some plays too. So that's a positive. I did like seeing finally we got to see Trech Kekahuna make some plays. Darrion Dupree all through fall camp was showing all this potential. The freshman running back, the last two games he's been more in the mix early, and it looks like moving forward he's going to be a guy that they're going to try to work into the game plan, because he's a talented guy. He can run the ball. He's a good receiver as well. Those two are positives. I also like, just seeing Braedyn Locke go out there and sling it and make plays was big. At a position like quarterback is such a confidence swagger type position that, I think him being able to go out there and have a game like that, might bode well for the future. Because you got to remember, Braedyn played, a handful of games last year. He obviously had, this is his third game this year, and he hadn't really gone off. Most of the time he was completing 50% of his passes for 150, 120, 160 yards. So for him to have this kind of performance, I think, has to make him feel even more confident in himself than he probably was already feeling.
Phil Longo said something really interesting about Locke on Monday, that he went to the line of scrimmage and changed the play 17 times during the game against Purdue, and 16 of those times was the correct call, the correct read. That is an illustration of what he brings to the table, his sort of mental acuity when it comes to understanding and digesting the game of football. I think it's just been, it's a physical thing. Tyler Van Dyke was the more physically gifted quarterback. This was the first time that I could see the Badgers winning football games with Braedyn Locke. And, in fairness, he was thrown into the fire last year. He's a backup. It's his first college game action at all. This year, also, again, drop of a hat, suddenly you're the quarterback against Alabama. That's quite the task. And USC, also it was a tough task, but I guess I get my confidence level in what Braedyn Locke can do grew. But again, it's that same question I just asked, because a lot of his passing yardage was accumulated by receivers who gained a ton after the catch, and it's Purdue, and he didn't really get any. There was no pressure on Braedyn Locke. The offensive line was incredible, but also Purdue wasn't very good at moving him around and making him uncomfortable. So, which aspects do you think really are building blocks toward what can this team beat teams like Penn State and Oregon and even Rutgers next week with Braedyn Locke at quarterback? Do we think we have a clearer answer to that question after this Purdue game?
I think it's still going to be a work in progress as far as Braedyn Locke, in terms of him throwing 15-yard passes and guys running 40 more yards for whatever 65, 70-yard gains. That happens for every quarterback. So
for sure.
that part of it doesn't.
You still got to set them up. There's still a value to that too.
Yeah, you look at that play to Vinny Anthony, where it wasn't a true. He wasn't truly on the run, but he kind of presented briefly this threat of running, and then he pulls up and fires and throws the ball. I thought that was a real nice play. I thought that was one of his better plays. Not every play is going to go over the top. Now, what can you take moving forward? It's going to be interesting to see. Like I say, I think what Wisconsin fans should feel better about is that not every team out there is Alabama or USC. There are a lot of other teams out there that aren't nearly as good that I think Wisconsin's going to be a lot more competitive with and have a chance to do some things with. I think this week is going to be interesting with Rutgers. Rutgers is off to a good start. I think their 4-0 start was their best start in about 10 or 12 years. But, this is also a team that last year, Wisconsin did a pretty good job against, here in Madison. So, can Wisconsin beat a Penn State or an Oregon? I'm not willing to go there at this point. But I do think, they're in that middle tier teams. I think they're, they have a chance to, be in that, once you get past Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, Penn State, and I know I'm forgetting USC. Once you get past teams like that, I think there's a middle pack of teams where I feel Wisconsin is right now. And even though they kind of struggled for a couple of weeks, my mind hasn't changed on that. So, I guess that would be how I would sum it up. They're not going to be that upper echelon team, but I do think they're getting better, and I think they're sort of middle of the package right now.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And that's what makes these next 2 weeks in my mind so important to them, because Rutgers will be favored to win. It's in Piscataway. So in that sense, this is a big challenge for them to assert that they are not one of the lower third teams in the Big Ten. They're going to have to beat Rutgers and Northwestern, both on the road. Northwestern has this cool new stadium on the lakefront, which will be really cool to see. Probably a game that Wisconsin will be favored, I think, but again, the way they played it early in the season, you could sort of see them lose to anyone. And these are not pushovers, particularly Rutgers, not a pushover at all. Right. Do you see it similarly? I don't think anybody would go into a season saying, well, this game against Rutgers is really going to tell us everything we need to know about the Wisconsin Badgers. But is that where you feel, what has to happen for them to win this game? And is it a signpost that really sort of is going to summarize this season when it's all said and done?
I think this week is, I think Rutgers is the quality road win that is sort of the next step for this football team. Okay, they were solid, against USC. They played a decent first half against Alabama. They bounced back against Purdue. Now you got to go on the road and face a team that just lost last week, and that's probably going to add a little more edge and urgency to what Rutgers is doing. So, I think this is a key week for Wisconsin from that standpoint, that, hey, this is a quality team that you can get a quality road win against. Now, as far as, how you're going to stop Rutgers, it all boils down to, really containing their running game. Their physical team. I wrote something earlier this week that this is, for Wisconsin fans, they play like a Wisconsin fan can appreciate. They're physical. They run the ball. They're kind of like, okay, this is who we are. This is what we're going to do. Okay, can you stop it? Type of thing. Nothing really flashy. So I definitely think it's a game, Wisconsin can win. I think they have do I dare say firepower? I don't want to, let's not get crazy, but I think they've shown some potential that, offensively to maybe take this act on the road a little bit and be able to put some points on the board, help their defense, and, maybe come out for a win. I haven't done my prediction yet, but I am leaning toward, a Wisconsin victory this week.
I'm leaning the other way. I'm just going to be upfront about that. We'll see. I can be swayed. I can be
convinced. Yeah, and I have, like I say, until I type it in and fully think about it, but my initial those are my initial thinking. That's my initial thought. So
I have had very good luck with the predictions this week, this year rather, with the even with the Brewers in the playoffs. I've been money, but I really don't know if I love being money when the outcomes are what they are. I want to talk real briefly about the running game. It's been a week now since Ches Malusi has sort of stepped away from the program, saying he's focusing on injuries. I also think it coincides with whether or not there's a straight correlation or not. The fact that they have so many options. You see Tyree Walker kind of rising to the forefront as the main guy, and then freshman Darrion Dupree, who I feel like is kind of jumped ahead of Cade Yakimelli in the pecking order a little bit. I don't want to forget Dylan Jones, who got a ton of yards against Purdue. It was a little bit later in the game when things have kind of revealed themselves to be going the direction we expected. But it does feel like Darrion Dupree is just really the real deal, and they really want to use him in as many ways as they can. He did have a mistake in this game against Purdue, but he also followed it up with a really nice play. So like he's capable of really kind of, I think, being a game changer. How do you look at the running back room right now? Do you think I see it correctly? I mean, do you think Tyree Walker is for sure going to be the number one guy the rest of the year? Where do the true freshmen fall in? How do you sort of digest it?
Yeah, I do think Tyree is going to continue to be kind of the number one guy. I think he just is, even though Darrion, let's just say, who knows if Chez will come back. But if he's not there, I do think Tyree is going to kind of carry the mantle of being that number one back. I mean, he's a senior, he's experienced. That's a big role for a young guy to have. And let's be honest, as far as starting goes, that's not as big of a deal at the college level as how much you play.
Right.
Darrion, I mean, he just he has a unique skill set. I mean, he was, I got a chance to see him play for his high school team, and they were running him out. They were lining him up at slot a lot of times. So he wasn't just playing running back. He was lining up and running pass routes. I mean, I think he's a guy that, like, when he gets into the lineup, you can do a lot of stuff with him. That, I mentioned him and Trech. I mean, those two guys intrigued me in terms of, okay, the different little wrinkles you could do and different combinations you could do with those guys in terms of where you put them on the field to try to get the favorable matchups. But yeah, I do think Darrion has moved, is the number two guy. It's kind of funny. A week or so ago, before we knew Chez was going to take this leave, I happened to be doing an interview with Tyree, and he's talking about the running backs, and he's just talking about himself, Chez, and DD, who that's how he was calling Darrion. Yeah. And at the time, I was thinking, well, he's not mentioning Cade. And and in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I wonder if, Darrion's kind of moved up the ladder a little bit. And the way the game went, it's pretty clear that he has. I mean, even if you look at the USC game, he came out in the second series and played. They just didn't, for whatever reason, didn't go back to him. Didn't go back to Dupree. So I do think, he is the number two. At some point, you just got to let these guys. He's one of these guys that, when the defense does everything right, he still can make a play. And at some point, you got to just try to get those guys on the field. And I think at this stage of the season, he probably has a, good enough knowledge of the offense that they can put him out there in certain situations and really play to his strengths.
Yeah, his best play against Purdue, I don't think counted for as much as it could have. He put the ball on the ground, but then picked it up and kept his balance while very low to the ground in a really impressive way. Again, they didn't give him all the yards that I think they should have, but it was just a demonstration of what he can do. Real quickly before I let you go, the defense. We haven't talked a lot about them. They were dealt that really big blow at the beginning of the season when James Thompson was lost for the year. I think we might finally, again, it's Purdue, but we might finally be seeing some spark there, some, really just being able to create havoc. Hudson Card is, as bad as Purdue is, Hudson Card's decent at like keeping plays alive and making it difficult. And the defense really held its own, secondary especially, but everybody seemed to be playing. So what are you thinking of right now with the defense?
Yeah, I mean, now, as far you say, okay, you asked me kind of what should we believe in? I'm a little more, I don't put as much stock in it was a great performance for the defense. And again, they did what they're supposed to do when a team is struggling.
Sure.
They didn't give up a touchdown, which is good. But Purdue, that was their first game with a new offensive coordinator. They got some issues there offensively. So, I guess I wasn't as I didn't feel their performance, not that it was bad, but I thought the offense's performance was more promising. That said, I mean, I do think, they're showing signs of getting better. I think in this age of football, and we saw this at USC, like the defense needs, I always feel like the defense needs the offense just to kind of give it a little boost every now and then. And Saturday, the offense gave the defense, a great number of boosts in terms of just energy and momentum. And then you go back to the USC game in the second half, and the offense didn't give the defense anything to build on. And sometimes that's, the little edge that maybe gets that team off the field at USC on third down a couple times when they never could before. So Luke Fickell talks about this whole complementary football thing, and I do think it especially is key with the defense. I do think they're getting better. The linebackers I'm really liking. Jake Chain's doing a great job. Tackett Curtis's emergence has been, I think he's going to be a player, when he takes on that role full time. Xavier Lucas, another young defensive back. They got some younger guys there. Christian Allegrio, linebacker. They got some younger guys on defense that I think are going to be really, really good players. And then I think overall that unit is just kind of gelling and quietly getting better. And again, this week it's going to be stopping the run. They did a good job of that last year against Rutgers. We'll see if they're able to do it again.
Yeah, we haven't even seen Amari Snowden at the peak of his powers. He's getting in. A lot of young guys got into this game against Purdue. We'll see if they can build on that. Again, Mark Stewart, find everything he has at jsonline.com. He will be in New Jersey watching the Badgers take on Rutgers this week. Thanks for chatting, Mark. We'll talk again real soon.
All right, thanks.